Okay, next, let's add user interaction to our light switch. Before we begin, let's take a look at some of the things in the right-hand menu that you'll be using to update the user interface of your application. I want to focus chiefly on a few of these inspectors up at the top. Okay, so I'm going to select my switch in the document outline so that you can see how we might adjust things about different parts of our view with these right-hand menus. On the far left, we have the file inspector. This will tell you stuff about the file, but you won't use it much. Then you can look at your commits in the next one over. And you can look at quick help in the next one over with a little question mark on it. This will tell you information about the class of the specific thing that you have selected. In this case, a UI switch, which is an object provided to us by the iOS API called UIKit that we use for creating and using user interface elements in iOS. Next to the one that looks like a little newspaper, this one is the identity inspector. And we'll use this to set the specific class that a UI element is supposed to come from. And we'll also use this to set IDs on some of our stuff so that we can get access to it in code. The next one, though, is the one that we'll probably use the most. This is called the attributes inspector, and it looks like a little stake like you might put into the ground next to a plant in your garden. This is going to allow you to update attributes of your UI. And so you might be able to use it to set, for example, the color of your switch or the color of the little thumb thing that you use to move the switch. So now I've made those mint and yellow, and you can see that in the preview. I don't think this looks that nice, so I'm actually going to put it back the way that it was. All right. But the attributes inspector will allow you to change things like the relative sizes, colors, backgrounds, transparencies of your views. The next thing we're going to look at is the size inspector, which looks like a ruler. And this is going to allow you to adjust things about the size of your views. Also, you'll have the opportunity at the bottom of the size inspector to adjust your constraints. We see two here, align center X and align center Y. Those are the two constraints that we added when we centered our light switch in the container. Finally, you have the connections inspector. We're not going to use this now, but we'll use this when we start doing segues, which are how we connect different views to other screens in our application in iOS, so we can move between screens. All right, so it's time to connect some stuff up to code. So the first thing that we're going to do is open a code file. The way that you open a file in Xcode is with Command Shift O as in ostrich. Here, we can search for any file in our file system for this app. I'm going to search for a file called View Controller. We generated this file when we made our single view application. I want to be able to see my view controller file open next to my main.storyboard file. So in order to do that, I'm going to use the key binding Option Enter. That opens the file that I want to open on the right while leaving my other files open on the left. This is starting to get crowded, so I'm going to go to the upper right-hand corner and I'm going to hide my file inspector and my connections inspector on the right. So now I don't see my menus. I only see on the left my main.storyboard and on the right my view controller. The view controller is the class that we use in iOS to programmatically control our views. And it's represented with this scene in our main.storyboard. So now it's time to connect our light switch up to some code. In order to do that, we're going to select switch in our document outline, hold down the control key on our keyboard, click and drag from our switch in the storyboard to our view controller. Then let go. A pop-up will appear, and we're going to use that pop-up to connect our light switch to our code. So the connection option at the very top gives us three options: outlet, action, and outlet collection. First, we're going to do an outlet, which gives us a handle to that switch in our view controller. And we're going to name it light switch. It's going to be of the type UI switch, which is the UI kit class that we're using here. We're going to allow storage to remain weak. Now you can click the connect button in the lower right hand corner, or you can hit enter to create this connection. So now I've created a connection in my code to this object called a light switch. The bubble next to it that's filled in means that the connection happened successfully. We're now going to add one more connection here. And we'll do that again by selecting the light switch, holding down the control key, clicking and dragging to our code, and letting go. This time, I want to create an action connection. And the action connection is going to create a method that is called every time that this specific action occurs on screen. So in the connections menu, I'm going to choose action. The object that it's going to go to will be the view controller. I'm going to name this switch did flip. This method's going to be called every time that somebody flips our light switch. We'll leave the type at any. Now we can choose the event that we want to cause this method to fire. In this case, I want the value changed on the switch to be the thing that fires this method. But I can choose all kinds of things. I can choose various different touches that a user might make on the screen, or I can use beginning or ending of editing. This is what you would use if you had like a text view and you wanted people to be able to edit the text in there, but I'm leaving it at value changed. Once again, you can click connect in the lower right-hand corner of this pop-up, or you can hit enter. I'm going to hit enter. So now I have my method. Switch did flip. All right. Now it's time to start adding some code to our switch did flip method. In this case, what I want is for the background of my app to go black when the light switch is off, and the background of my app to be white when the light switch is on. So we need here a conditional that checks if the switch is on or off. And if it's on, we set the background color to white. And if it's off, we set the background color to black. How are we going to know if the switch is on or off? Well, we have to find the attribute on our light switch. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to type in self, which refers to the view controller, dot, and find our light switch. The reason that the light switch is available here is because we added it as an attribute on this class when we created this outlet in the view controller. Now we're going to use something that I call the dot trick, which is the way that Xcode allows you to explore your APIs and what you can write in your code. So I have light switch. I'm going to put a dot after light switch. This is going to bring up a menu of all the attributes and methods that I can call on light switch. Now, let's take a look and see if any of these look like a way to figure out whether the light switch is on or off. We have custom mirror, that doesn't look right. Debug description, that doesn't look right. Flat map, hash, hash value. Oh, here we go. We have an attribute called isOn, which returns a Boolean, true or false. That looks like it's going to return true if the light switch is on and false if the light switch is off. So I'm going to hit enter to use that. Let's wrap this in a conditional. If self.lightSwitch is on, open a curly brace, and in here we're going to set background color to white. Now, we're also going to add an else block, and this is for if the light switch is off. And here we're going to set the background color to black. So how will we do that? Well, we have access to our view on our view controller with self.view. view. So I'm going to say self.view dot, and I'm going to look for what I want, background color. I'm going to hit enter here. Now, if I look at that documentation again, I see the background color is of a type called UI color. The UI color is an API, again, provided by iOS to let us specify colors. So I'm going to assign my background color to UI color dot white. Now I'm going to do the same thing when the switch is off. Self dot view dot background color assigned to UI color dot black. So there's our conditional logic. Let's run our app and see how we do. I'll hit the play button in the upper left-hand corner, stop the current version of the app so that it reboots on my simulator. Great. So now I have my app. It has a light switch that's on. I can turn it off and on again.